I was going to get your take and get your breakdown of the fight and just your overall opinion of the fight, because it was a different Cody, and it was kind of a step up for Rob, and I think he handled it like a champ, and I think the sky's the limit for that guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rob looked really good. You know, he was clean. His striking was well managed and well ranged. He chose his weapons very well. I also think Cody did make it easier for him, though. You know, his game plan was very strange, considering he's got such a reach disadvantage. What is it, 6 inches?
It was like 6 inches. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like you can't move back and counter strike with a guy that's got a reach advantage like that. You know, it's like when we were fighting. I knew you were not only really fast, but you had long arms as well. And like if I'd have backed up, you'd have picked me off all day. It was one of those kind of decisions that you kind of thought, why is Cody backing up and not being more aggressive? You know, you need to get inside his reach and make it uncomfortable for him. I mean, he kept level changing, but I don't think that was really a part of his game plan. More of a reaction to pressure than anything. So it was odd. It was an uncharacteristic performance from Cody. I thought he should have been more aggressive. But then we don't know where his confidence is. You know, he's been rocked and hurt a few times, and maybe a lot of it is down to how the fight starts out. You know, if he gets a good start, he tends to find his way in. But if he has a bad start or a slow start, and you know, Rob Font's such a guy to get, you know, once you're behind with him, he never lets you get back into the fight.
Right.
It was a really impressive performance from him, but I'd like to see Cody get back on top. I think he, you know, just needs to regroup, perhaps, you know, realize what he brings to the table, what he brings to the octagon, which is aggression and power, and just maybe apply that a bit better instead of trying to, like Mike Perry did, didn't he? You know, when he went down to Jackson Wink and he started to, you know, trying to be a counter striker, it just doesn't suit some guys, and I think that might be the case with him.
I feel like, to me, I mean, watching the fight as it progressed on, it seemed like Cody didn't know who he was, if that makes sense. Like the Cody I saw, the Cody that we've seen in the past, pointing at Dominic Cruz and being aggressive and having, you know, the last fight, you know, the knockout, that's a different animal. And this fight we saw, like it was comparable to like a hyena and a lion, where a hyena is an intimidating and scary looking animal, right, at all times. But when he's fighting with the lion, he's still scary and intimidating, but he's intimidated and he's looking vulnerable. Do you know what I'm saying? He looked more like the hyena, and Rob looked more like the lion. And my take on this, or my curiosity is, did it start from that first punch? And do you think maybe that started this whole thing, where maybe he kind of got insecure and started thinking a little bit more defensively, or was it from the very beginning? I don't know. I can't remember the very, very beginning of the fight. I don't know if Cody came out like that, or if maybe that first big strike from Rob and that pressure kind of changed him just really fast, and then he kind of, you know, and not taking anything away from him. I'm not trying to dog Cody. In fact, I'm probably giving him an excuse, if anything, if he had something wrong. But hats off to him for taking the punches that he took and the kick that he took, and he never quits fighting. And same for Rob. I mean, both of those guys took enormous amounts of power shots. I mean, Cody definitely took a lot. I mean, Cody made me definitely, you know, I know you're in a different position, but it definitely made me, you know, justify my decision in not fighting again, because I don't want to take any of those punches again, where it rocks your head back like that, and you have to wonder how it happened and what happened.
Yeah, and you know, and what that does to his confidence when it does happen, and how vulnerable it makes him feel. You know, I just, my memory of the very, very opening of the fight was Cody walked out to the center and immediately was like kind of playing a waiting game, like he was going to counter strike, but then started getting backed up and was never able to break out of that routine. Yeah, I do feel very much like it is a psychological thing, though. You know, I do feel like like if the fight starts to get away from him, he's a very emotional being.
Yeah.
And with the Dominic Cruz fight, it started to go so well for him in the beginning, and he just cruised. He cruised. He just, you know,
pun intended,
he was comfortable all the way through the fight, and he was in his element. He was enjoying himself. But then he steps in against Dillashaw twice, and he's so angry and fired up. Then he goes in, you know, to the Munoz fight, coming off 2 losses, and now he feels like he has to win one back, and now the pressure's on him, and he, you know, does the same thing again, gets emotional, gets anxious. I don't know. I think he needs an overall game plan instead of tactics to use within the fight. I think he needs an overall strategy, and I think that's maybe what was missing.
Yeah.
Like, be assertive. You know, when you're a puncher like that, you need to make your opponent feel uncomfortable, like they're going to get knocked out at any moment. That's why Tyron Woodley does so well backed up against the fence, because he shows you this right hand, and he lets you remember how powerful it is. Cody should be doing the same thing, but he didn't do anything to remind him of how dangerous Cody is. Like once Rob had found his way into the fight, he kind of started to have his way. And I would have liked to have seen Cody, even if he did want to counter strike, back up, move away, slip, and then bite, throw a couple of combinations, and then start backing up again. But it got to the stage where there was nothing to stop Rob Font moving forwards. And he just looked better and better as the fight went on.
Yeah, and you're right about that. When he would back up, it wasn't an intimidating backup. It was like a in fear backup. And he was he had good head movement at least, and he dodged a lot of big shots. But it was like he was worried. And he was definitely backing up in fear. But I will say he definitely still has speed, and credit to him for that, because he was landing shots that were pretty fast. And I'll say Rob Font has speed as well, because for the majority of the punches that landed on Cody didn't see it all, which is why we saw Cody's head jar back so much every time. So, it's deceitful or deceiving, I guess, coming from Font. I mean, we obviously know he's got good stand up and striking and everything, but man, I was impressed with his speed for sure. To land on someone like Cody as fast and as often as he did. I mean, it was something like significant strikes was like 180 to 60 or something. It was like or significant I think significant strikes was 180 to 60, so it was like 3 times the amount of Cody. So I was like, that's incredible pressure and incredible striking.
Yeah, I mean, great conditioning. Shows he's got conditioning over 5 rounds, which is what we want to see as he's moved into the top 5 now. We want to see him competitive over 5 rounds, so that's not a question going into a title fight. And there's a nice difference between the way they stand as well. You see, Cody's always kind of standing with his center line between his feet, which gives him good mobility head movement wise, but it doesn't make it a very assertive position. Whereas if you watch Rob Font, he's very heavy on his lead leg. Yep. He uses that high guard. And that makes him seem like he's closer than he is. So that was another thing he was using very well. He was appearing to be closer to Cody than he was, and then as Cody's throwing, he's slipping out of the way. Yeah. And that's another way of discouraging him as well. I think he looks very good. I'd just like to see him progress now in this division. I think he's an interesting problem, especially given the fact that we know he's got grappling skills as well that he didn't really need yesterday.